The night was cold and silent. The ruined alien city looked like a ghost. Broken buildings standing like dark teeth against the sky. Shadows stretched across the streets where no one dared to walk. The air was heavy with smoke, hunger, and fear. In this place, only the strongest survived, and the weak were left behind. Among the shadows walked a mother, her steps slow and heavy, her skin pale from lack of food. Her eyes tired, her body shaking, but still she walked, because beside her was her little daughter. The girl's small hand clutched her arm, weak but refusing to let go. The child's stomach growled with hunger, her lips dry, her breath shallow. Every step they took was filled with pain. But the mother would not stop. She had one mission: to find food, anything for her daughter. She knocked on the first door they passed. The door opened just a little. A pair of alien eyes looked out. "Please, some food." The mother whispered, her voice broken, but the door slammed shut without a word. The sound echoed through the empty street like a cruel answer. The daughter looked up, her big eyes wet. The mother forced a smile, trying to hide her despair. They moved on. One more door, one more chance. Again she knocked, again she begged, but every door closed the same way. Fear ruled this city. No one shared, no one cared. Everyone was too afraid of starving themselves. As the night grew darker, the mother's hope began to fade. Her daughter stumbled, falling to her knees. The mother lifted her up, tears running down her cheeks. She could not lose her. Not like this. She would do anything, even if it meant giving up herself. Then, far ahead, she saw something strange. A faint light shining through the cracks of a broken wall. Not the dull blue of alien lamps, but a warm, golden glow. She felt her heart race. Light meant life. Light meant someone still had power, food, and maybe hope. She pushed forward, carrying her daughter in her arms, her body weak, but her spirit desperate. At last, she reached the source. It was a shelter hidden between the ruins, a simple door of steel, strong and unbroken. From inside came the smell of cooked food, her daughter's. Nose twitched, her small eyes wide with longing. The mother knocked, her hands shaking. The door opened slowly, and standing there was something she did not expect. A human. He was tall, scarred. His eyes sharp but calm. His clothes were strange. Not alien fabric, but human armor patched and worn. He looked at her without fear. Behind him, she saw shelves of food, firelight, and safety. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. But no, this was real. She dropped to her knees. Her daughter beside her, her voice cracked as she spoke. "Please, my child is starving. I have nothing to give you. But take me, as your slave. As your servant, just give her food." Her words echoed with shame, but also with love. She was ready to give everything, even herself. If it meant her daughter could live, the human did not move, his face unreadable. The silence stretched, the mother's heart pounded. She expected laughter, cruelty, or rejection. She expected him to slam the door like the others, but instead he bent down, his voice calm. "Stand up," he said. His words were simple, but carried weight. She looked up in confusion. The human held out a piece of bread, not stale, not moldy, but fresh and warm. The daughter's eyes lit up. She reached for it. The human placed the bread in her hands gently. "Eat," he said. The little girl bit into it hungrily, tears rolling down her cheeks. The mother could not believe what she saw. Why would a stranger, a human in an alien city, show such kindness? Her hands trembled, her voice cracked. "Why? Why would you help us?" she whispered. The human only looked at her, his eyes calm, but full of something she could not name. He did not take her offer. He did not demand payment. He simply opened the door wider. "Come inside," he said. The mother froze, unsure if it was real. behind her. The cold streets stretched endlessly. Ahead of her was warmth, food, and safety. The mother clutched her daughter tightly, her heart racing. She stepped forward into the light. The human closed the door behind them. The city outside remained dark and cruel. But inside this shelter, something had changed. The mother felt it in her bones. This was not the end of her story. This was the beginning, and she knew, deep down, that this human was different. Different in a way that could change everything. Inside the shelter, the air felt different. It was warm, filled with the smell of cooked food and the faint crackle of fire. The flickering light chased away the cold shadows that had followed the mother and her daughter through the streets. For the first time in weeks, the little girl's lips curled into a small smile. Her eyes sparkled as she held the bread close, chewing slowly, as if afraid it would vanish. The mother stood frozen by the door. She could not believe she was standing inside this place. Her body told her to relax, but her mind whispered danger. No one gave without asking. Not in this city. Not in this galaxy. Every kindness she had ever known came with chains. So why? Did this human look at her with eyes that did not demand? Only watched. The human turned toward her. His voice steady. "You are safe here," he said. His tone carried no threat, no greed, only truth. The mother shook her head, her hands trembling. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I have nothing, nothing to offer. Yet you give food." Her voice broke as tears fell. She felt shame for her earlier words. Shame for offering herself, but hunger had broken her pride, and a mother's love had broken her fear. The human walked to a shelf, pulling down a simple bowl. He filled it with warm stew, the steam rising like a promise. Without hesitation, he placed it before the girl. The little one's eyes widened, her small hands reaching eagerly. But before she could take it, she looked at her mother, waiting for permission. The mother nodded, her chest tight, tears running freely. She could not remember the last time her child ate something hot as the girl ate. The human sat across from them, silent. His eyes scanned the mother. Not with hunger, but with understanding. It was as if he knew her story without hearing it. As if he had seen this same suffering before. The mother dared to ask, her voice soft. "Why are you here, human? Why help us when your kind owes us nothing?" The human leaned back, his gaze heavy with memories. He spoke slowly, each word carrying weight. "Because I have seen too many worlds burn, too many children starve, too many mothers break themselves to save what they love." His voice carried no pride, only pain. "I swore I would not walk away again." The mother felt a strange chill. As if his words reached deep inside her. This man was not like the others she had met in her life. He was not cold, not selfish, not ruled by fear. Instead, he was dangerous. In a different way, dangerous because he cared. In a world where no one cared. Kindness was the rarest weapon, but fear still clung to her heart. She looked around the shelter, the supplies, the hidden safety. If others discovered this place, they would kill for it. She whispered, almost afraid of her own words. "If they find you, if they find us here, they will take everything. They will kill you." The human's lips curved into a faint smile. His eyes glinted like steel. "Let them try," he said. The mother felt both fear and comfort in those words. He was not just a man, he was something more. A fighter, a survivor, a protector. The daughter finished her bowl, leaning against her mother's side. Her small body finally resting after days of suffering. Her breathing slowed, her eyes closed in peace. The mother stroked her hair, whispering thanks. She looked up at the human again, her voice low. "You did not take me. Even when I offered, you gave us food. You gave her hope. Why?" The human stared into the fire, the orange glow reflecting in his eyes. "Because I am human." he said, simply. The words confused her. To her, human was just a species, no different from any other. But in his voice, it sounded like something greater, something heavier, something proud. The mother wanted to ask more. But she saw the tired lines on his face, scars that told stories of battles she could not imagine. She stayed quiet, letting silence fill the room. The fire crackled. The girl slept, and for one fragile moment, it felt like peace, yet deep in her heart, the mother knew peace never lasted. She had lived too long in this cruel galaxy to believe otherwise. Soon, whispers of food, of light, of a human shelter would spread soon. Others would come, not for kindness, but for blood. And when that time came, what would happen to her and her daughter? What would this human do when faced with those who only wanted to destroy? The mother closed her eyes, holding her daughter close. The human remained by the fire, watching the flames. He seemed calm. But inside him stirred a storm that had followed him across stars, across wars, across the endless dark, a storm that now found purpose in a simple choice. He had decided this mother and child would not suffer again, and whatever came, he would face it, not as a soldier, not as a conqueror, but as a human. The mother woke to the sound of quiet, crackling fire. Her daughter slept peacefully beside her on a blanket softer than anything she had felt in years. For the first time in a long time, she had not dreamed of hunger or fear. Instead, she had dreamed of warmth, of bread, of safety. When her eyes opened, she remembered it was no dream. She was inside the human shelter. The room around her was simple, but strong. Walls of steel patched together, shelves stacked with jars of food, tools, and water. There was no luxury, but everything was neat and prepared. It was not just a shelter, it was a fortress. The human had built this place with care, with purpose. Every corner spoke of survival. Every detail whispered of a man who had seen the worst and planned for it. The mother sat up slowly, her body weak, but her spirit a little stronger. She could not help but wonder, how could one human gather so much when whole streets starved? How did he bring light when the city was dark? How did he survive when others fell? Questions burned inside her, but fear kept her quiet. The human appeared from another room, carrying a small metal tray. On it were more bowls of warm stew and pew, and a jug of clean water. He placed it down without a word, his movements steady, controlled. The smell filled the shelter, making the mother's stomach twist with hunger. Her daughter stirred, her eyes opening slowly. The moment she saw the food, her tired face lit up. The mother whispered softly, "Eat, little one." The girl obeyed happily, as if this kindness were normal, but the mother knew it was not normal, not in this world. Other aliens had already whispered about this human. She remembered hearing voices in the streets. "They say he is dangerous," one had warned. "They say he is not like us, that he hoards food, that he fights without fear." Another had said, "Some said he was cursed, some said he was mad," but no one truly knew, because no one dared to approach him until her. She glanced at him now. His back straight, his eyes sharp. He did not eat first. He let them eat. Every action felt deliberate, like a soldier following rules only he understood. Finally she spoke, her voice hesitant. "Why do they fear you?" The human looked at her, his face calm. "Because they do not understand," he answered. He did not explain more, but the weight of his words filled the silence after they finished eating. The human stood. "Come," he said. Opening another door, the mother followed carefully, carrying her daughter's hand. They stepped into another room, larger than the first. It was filled with supplies, boxes of medicine, water tanks, even strange human weapons she could not name. But what caught her eye most was a small generator. Humming softly, it glowed with golden light, steady and warm, the heart of the shelter. Her daughter gasped, running toward it, the light reflecting in her eyes. The human allowed it. Watching silently, the mother whispered in awe, "This is why you have power. This is why you have food." The human nodded. "I built this with what I carried. What I found, what I refused to let go of," he said. 2. Survive. You do not need to steal. You need to prepare. You need to protect. His words struck her, in her world. Survival always meant taking, fighting, betraying. But here, survival had been turned into something else, something stronger. The mother felt a strange pull in her chest. Perhaps this human was not dangerous because of his weapons. Perhaps he was dangerous because he showed another way. Yet danger always found its way. Outside, the city grew worse each day. Starving families whispered of food, of warmth, of a human who hid more than his share. Greedy eyes turned toward the golden light that spilled faintly through cracks in the ruined walls. The mother knew it was only a matter of time before someone came knocking. Not for help, but for blood. She turned to the human. Fear on her face. "They will find you," she said, her voice shaking. "They will not forgive this. They will not let you live with what you have. They will take it. They will take her," she said. Clutching her daughter, the human's expression did not change. "They will come," he agreed, his tone calm, "but they will not take her. They will not take you." The mother's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever promised safety without wanting something in return. Her heart ached with disbelief and hope. Could this man truly protect them against all? The daughter tugged at the mother's hand, her little voice innocent. "Can we stay here, Mama? It feels safe." Tears filled the mother's eyes. She looked at the human, waiting, almost afraid of his answer. He gave a simple nod. "Yes, you can stay." The fire crackled. The generator hummed, and for the first time in years, hope lived in that small room. But hope was dangerous. Hope drew attention. And in the broken city outside, others had already begun to notice the impossible. A light where there should be none. A warmth where there should only be cold. And whispers spread like fire in the dark. Whispers of a human shelter. Asterisk, the firelight flickered across the shelter walls. The mother sat quietly, holding her daughter as the child drifted into soft sleep. But her eyes stayed fixed on the human. He sat across from her, sharpening a blade with steady hands. His face calm, his movements precise. The silence was heavy, yet not empty. It was filled with unspoken questions. At last, the mother whispered, "You fight like a soldier. You prepare like a soldier. But you do not act like one? Who are you really?" Her voice trembled, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. The human paused, his hand resting on the blade. His eyes lifted to meet hers, and for a moment she saw something deep inside. Them, not cruelty, not coldness, but weight. The kind of weight only carried by someone who had seen too much. "I was a soldier once," he said, his voice low. "Not just on one world, but across many. I fought where I was told. I killed who I was ordered to. I survived battles that swallowed thousands, but every victory felt like loss." The mother listened, her breath caught in her throat. She had heard of humans fighting in alien wars, but she had never heard one speak of it with such pain. The human continued, his tone steady. "I saw hunger turn children into shadows. I saw rulers sit fat on thrones while their people begged for scraps. I saw mothers offer themselves, just as you did tonight, trading their dignity for a single meal. And I hated it." His jaw tightened, his hand clenched around the blade. "I hated myself for walking past them, for obeying orders that told me their suffering was not my concern." The mother felt a shiver. She remembered her own shame, her own desperate offer at his door, but in his words, she heard no judgment. "Only understanding," she whispered. "And now, you choose to help, even when it is dangerous." The human nodded slowly. "Yes, Because no commander, no ruler, no war can order me to look away again. I choose to fight a different battle now. He stood, pacing slowly across the room, his shadow stretching on the walls. When the war ended, I could have gone home, but home was gone. Destroyed in flames, I could not stop. I wandered, lost, until I came here. He gestured to the shelter around them. This place, this ruin. It reminded me of too many worlds I failed to protect. So, I built this shelter. Not to hide, but to stand. To say no more. The mother's heart pounded. This man was not simply surviving. He was carrying a war inside himself. Every scar on his skin, every line on his face, was a story of battles fought. But instead of breaking him, it had carved him into something stronger. Something the galaxy had not seen before. Her daughter stirred in her sleep, murmuring softly. The mother stroked her hair, her eyes never leaving the human. "You are not like us," she whispered. The human gave a faint smile, shaking his head. "No, I am not. But that is why I can give you something your people forgot. I can give you hope." The words struck her like a blade. Hope, a word she had buried long ago. Hope was dangerous. Hope was a lie. Yet, as she looked at her daughter's peaceful face, she felt it stirring again. The human's voice cut through her thoughts. Steady and clear. But hope is not free. It must be defended. It must be protected. And that is what I will do. The mother swallowed hard, fear and awe mixing inside her. But if they come, if the raiders or the rulers find you, they will not stop. They will destroy you. The human's eyes hardened. "Then let them come," he said. His voice carried no arrogance, only certainty. "I have fought armies. I have faced death more times than I can count. But this time I fight for something different. This time I fight for them." He looked at the sleeping child, then back to the mother, his expression softened for the first time. "This time I fight for family, even if it is not mine." The mother felt her chest tighten, tears stinging her eyes. No one had ever spoken like that. No one had ever given her and her daughter such value. She lowered her head, whispering, "Then perhaps you are more dangerous than I feared. Not because of your weapons, but because of your heart." The fire crackled louder, as if answering her words. The human sat back down. Laying the blade beside him, for a moment, silence returned. But it was no longer heavy. It was the silence of understanding. Of two souls who had survived pain in different ways, the mother knew his past was filled with battles, loss, and guilt. But his present was something new. Something the galaxy was not ready for. The daughter shifted again, smiling in her dreams. The mother wiped her eyes and held her close. She knew danger was coming. She knew the whispers outside would grow louder. But for the first time in years, she felt she was not alone. She had a protector. A soldier who had left war behind but still carried the fire to fight. And that fire now burned for her and her child. The human leaned back, closing his eyes. Sleep did not come easy to him. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself a moment of rest. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new threats, but tonight, in this small shelter, his past had given birth to a new purpose. Okay? And that purpose was stronger than any war. Asterisk, the days began to pass slowly inside the human shelter. What had once been only cold hunger outside now felt distant, replaced by warmth and food for the mother and her daughter. Each morning was no longer a fight to survive, but a chance to breathe. The daughter laughed sometimes, her small voice echoing through the steel walls. It had been so long since laughter touched the mother's ears that she almost forgot what it sounded like. The human watched quietly, never asking for thanks, never demanding anything. He simply provided food when they were hungry, blankets when they were cold, silence when they were afraid, yet more than his supplies. It was his presence that gave them strength. He moved with the calm of someone who knew danger would come, but was never afraid of it, and in that calm, the mother and daughter found safety. At first, the mother hesitated to help. She felt like a guest, an intruder in a world that was not hers, but the human never treated her as a burden. He showed her where water was stored, how to prepare meals with simple rations, how to mend broken clothes. When she tried to apologize for not knowing enough, he only shook his head. "Every hand that works makes us stronger," he said. It was the first time anyone had spoken to her as if her efforts mattered. The daughter grew quickly in spirit. She followed the human like a shadow, asking questions with innocent curiosity. "What is this? Why does it glow? Can you teach me that?" The human answered patiently, teaching her how to hold a tool, how to clean a blade, even how to read simple human symbols scratched onto paper. Her small hands struggled, her words stumbled, but he never grew angry. Instead, he encouraged her, telling her each mistake was only a step forward. The mother watched, her heart both heavy and light. Heavy with memories of a world that had taken so much light, with the sight of her daughter finally learning, finally growing. But outside the shelter, whispers grew, the glow of the generator, the smell of food, the faint sound of laughter. All were dangerous signals in a starving city. Neighbors began to talk in hushed tones. They say the human keeps a treasure. They say he feeds strangers while we starve. Fear mixed with envy, envy mixed with anger. And slowly the city's eyes turned toward the hidden shelter. The mother knew this. She could feel the weight of unseen gazes when she dared step outside. Once, when she went to fetch water from a broken fountain, a voice hissed from the shadows. "Your child looks too healthy for this city. What are you hiding?" She hurried back, clutching her daughter, her heart racing. When she told the human, he only nodded. "They will come sooner than I hoped," he said, his voice calm, but instead of fear, he looked at her and added, "That is why you must grow stronger now." The next day, he placed a wooden staff in her hands. Her eyes widened in shock. "I cannot fight," she said quickly, shaking her head, but the human's voice was steady. "You can, because you must. I will protect you, but I will also prepare you. If you fall without me, you must stand on your own." His words were not harsh, but they were sharp. She wanted to deny them, but deep down, she knew he was right. For her daughter's sake, she learned to hold the staff, to block, to strike. Her arms shook, her hands blistered, but she did not give up. Every day she trained a little more, and every day she felt a little less helpless. At night, when her daughter slept, she sat by the fire with the human. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they only sat in silence. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt shared. She told him stories of her people, of traditions lost in war. He listened quietly, never mocking, never dismissing. In return, he told small fragments of his past, not battles this time, but memories. A song from his world, a simple meal his mother once cooked, a river he had loved as a boy. The mother realized then that beneath the scars, he was still human, still someone who remembered love. Not only war, slowly, trust grew. It was not forced, it was not demanded. It was built, day by day, through actions, through quiet words, through the way he placed their safety above all else. The daughter began calling him guardian, a word she made up in her innocent tongue. At first, the mother tried to stop her, afraid it was too much. But when she saw the faint smile on the human's lips, she let it be. Perhaps guardian was the truest word for what he had become. Yet, even as bonds grew, shadows crept closer. The city outside grew restless, hungry, desperate. The mother could sense it. The human could feel it. And though laughter filled the shelter, it was always followed by silence. Silence that asked the same question: when the outsiders come? When the doors are broken? Will this fragile bond survive? The mother looked at the human one night, her voice soft. You give us food, safety, hope. But what if you fall? What happens then? The human's eyes locked onto hers. His voice firm. Then you rise, because hope is not mine alone. It belongs to you now, too. Her breath caught, her chest heavy. She realized then that he was not just protecting them. He was shaping them. He was building something greater than a shelter, greater than survival. He was building a bond strong enough to face the storm that was already on its way. Asterisk, the night outside was darker than usual. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching. Inside the shelter, the fire burned low, casting long shadows on the walls. The mother sat close to her daughter, who slept soundly under a blanket. But her heart refused to rest, her chest heavy with unease. The human stood by the door, listening, his posture calm but alert. As if every whisper in the wind spoke to him, the mother rose and walked to his side, her voice soft. Something is wrong, isn't it? He did not answer at once, only kept his gaze on the cracks of the steel door. Finally, he nodded. They are here, he said simply. Her stomach dropped. Who? She asked. Though she already feared the answer. Raiders, the human replied, his voice steady. They have followed the light. The smell, the whispers. They want what we have. Even before his words settled, there came a sound. Boots crunching against broken stone, harsh laughter cutting through the night. Then, fists pounding on the door. Open up, human. A voice growled. Thick with cruelty. We know you hide food. We know you keep power. Share it, or bleed for it. The daughter stirred at the noise, fear flashing in her eyes. The mother pulled her close, whispering comfort. Though her own fear was greater, she looked at the human, her voice trembling. You can't face them alone. There are too many, but the human only reached for his blade. Lifting it with quiet certainty. I have faced worse, he said. The raiders outside shouted again. We'll count to 3. Open, or we break it down. The mother felt her knees weaken, but the human stepped forward, his hand resting on the steel. He leaned close and spoke in a voice that carried through the door. This shelter is not yours. Leave now, or you will regret it. The raiders laughed, cruel and mocking. One man against us all. Do you think you're a god? One sneered. But the human's calm never wavered. I am human, he said. And his voice made the words feel like a warning. The pounding grew louder, the door shaking under the blows. The daughter whimpered, burying her face against her mother's chest. The mother whispered, Please, we must run. They will kill us. All the human shook his head. No, running will only bring more hunters. Tonight, we stand. With a final crash, the door burst open. 5 raiders stormed inside, their eyes wild. Their weapons raised, they were tall. Armored in scraps of metal, their faces twisted with greed. They saw the shelves of food, the glowing generator, and their grins widened. Look at this. One spat, a treasure hidden under our noses. The mother pushed her daughter behind, her shielding her with her body. One of the raiders sneered, pointing at her. The woman and child stay. The human can die. He lunged forward, but in that instant the human moved. Like a storm breaking free, he struck. His blade flashed, swift and precise. Cutting through the air, the raider fell back with a cry, clutching his arm. The others snarled, rushing him all at once, but the human fought like no one they had ever seen. Every strike was clean, every movement sharp. He did not waste energy, he did not hesitate. His body was scarred, but it carried memory of 100 battles. He was not fighting for orders now, not fighting for a flag. He was fighting for them. The mother watched, frozen between terror and awe. She had seen violence before, but never like this. The human was not just surviving. He was dominating. One raider swung a heavy club, but the human ducked low. Slamming his blade into the man's leg, another tried to grab him from behind, but the human twisted, throwing him against the steel wall with brutal force. The shelter echoed with the clash of metal, the growl of rage, the cries of pain. Still, the raiders pressed on. They were many. He was one. The mother's heart pounded. Would his strength be enough? She grabbed the wooden staff he had given her. Her hands trembled, but she stepped forward. One raider turned toward her, sneering, "You think you can fight me?" "Little one," he mocked. Her arms shook, but she swung with all her strength. But she swung with all her strength. The staff cracked across his face, sending him stumbling back. The human glanced at her, and for the briefest moment, their eyes met. He gave the smallest nod. Silent approval. It filled her with strength she didn't know she had. Finally, with one last strike, the human stood tall over the fallen raiders. Blood dripped from his blade, his chest heaving, but his eyes sharp. "Leave," he growled, his voice like thunder. The survivors, wounded and broken, scrambled out into the night, their threats fading into the darkness. The shelter was quiet again, save for the crackle of fire and the heavy breathing of the living. The mother dropped the staff, her knees weak. Her daughter clung to her side, eyes wide with both fear and admiration. The human wiped his blade and sheathed it, his face calm as if nothing had happened. But the mother knew everything had changed. The raiders would not forget. They would return with more. And yet, as she looked at him standing there, tall and unshaken, she felt a strange certainty they might return. But so would he, and he would be ready. The shelter was quiet after the battle. The air carried the smell of sweat, blood, and fire. The mother held her daughter tightly, feeling the girl's small heartbeat racing against her chest. She looked at the human, standing tall in the middle of the room, his blade still glinting faintly in the firelight. He had fought like a storm, and now the storm was calm again. The raiders were gone, but their threat lingered. The mother knew they would return with more. Stronger, angrier. Yet when she looked at the human, she did not feel fear. She felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The daughter peeked out from her mother's arms, her eyes wide. "Guardian," she whispered, her voice trembling yet filled with awe. The human turned his gaze to her, and though his face remained steady, his eyes softened. "You are safe," he said simply. The little girl smiled through her tears. And that smile lit the room more than the fire ever could. Word of the fight spread quickly. By morning, whispers reached every corner of the broken city. They say the human stood against raiders and won. They say he protects strangers as if they were his own. They say his shelter is more than walls. It is a fortress of light. Some whispered with fear, others with envy, but many whispered with longing. By the second night, shadows gathered outside the shelter. Not raiders this time, but starving families. Desperate faces, trembling hands, mothers with thin children, old men with hollow eyes, all drawn by the rumor of hope. The mother looked out through a crack in the wall, her heart tightening. She remembered when she too had stood in the cold, begging for food. Now others stood the same way, their eyes pleading silently. She turned to the human, unsure what he would do. Would he shut the door, keep the food, protect only those inside? He stood still, his gaze heavy on the waiting crowd. Then he opened the door, his voice strong but calm. "Come in," he said. The crowd hesitated, some afraid it was a trap. But when the first child stepped forward and was handed bread, the silence broke. One by one, they entered, filling the room with soft cries of relief. The mother helped, guiding the weak to seats. Giving water where she could, her daughter carried small bowls, her laughter returning as she shared, and the human moved among them like a quiet force. Giving without asking, protecting without boasting, the shelter became more than a hiding place. It became a home. Every day more came, Every day more found safety behind its steel walls, and though supplies were stretched thin, the human never turned anyone away. He taught them to work, to repair, to guard each other, slowly. What was once a silent ruin became a small community. A spark in the dark, but danger still lingered. The raiders did return, stronger, with more weapons and louder threats. Yet this time they did not face one man alone. They faced a shelter of voices, a people who had learned to stand, and at the front was the human, his blade shining once more. The battle was fierce, but the outcome was clear. The raiders fled. Broken and afraid, their power shattered not by numbers, but by unity. After the fight, the people gathered around the human. They looked at him not with fear, but with respect. One of the elders spoke, his voice shaking. "You could have ruled us. You could have demanded payment, but instead you gave. Why?" The human looked at them, his eyes moving across the mothers, the fathers, the children. His voice was steady, filled with quiet power. "Because I am human," he said, "on my world. We learned long ago that strength is nothing without kindness, that survival means nothing if we forget compassion. I am not here to rule. I am here to remind you. Even in the darkest places, light can live again." The words spread. Carried from voice to voice, "Light can live again," they whispered. The mother felt her chest tightened, tears filling her eyes. She looked at her daughter, who smiled brightly. Whispering, "Guardian is right," the shelter grew into more than a safe place. It became a symbol, a beginning. The city that had once drowned in despair now carried a spark of hope. And at the heart of it stood a single human, not because of his strength, not because of his blade, but because he had chosen to care when no one else would. That night, as the stars shone faintly above the ruined city, the mother sat by the fire, her daughter asleep beside her. She looked at the human, who kept watch at the door. His silhouette strong against the flickering glow. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the room. "You changed everything, not just for us, but for all of them." The human did not turn. But she saw his shoulders relax. "I did not change them," he said. "I only reminded them what they had forgotten." The mother closed her eyes. Holding her daughter close, she knew the galaxy was still cruel, still filled with hunger and war. But here, in this shelter, one human had lit a flame that could not be put out. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater. In the ruins of despair, humanity's light had risen. And it burned brighter than the stars.